A very good morning to Dr. Connie. Today we'll be conducting a short interview for our International Business Talks, which is hosted by Sunway International Business Society. So this interview will be hosted by me, John, and my partner Ishwarmeet. So without any further ado, let's begin. So Dr. Connie, can you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, yes, so my name is Dr. Constance Van Horne, but since I got my PhD, everyone just calls me Dr. Connie. I'm from Canada. I grew up on Vancouver Island, which is on the west coast of Canada. I'll start way at the beginning. And I did my undergrad in history, and I worked, and then I decided I wanted to change. And so I moved across country to Quebec City, and I learned French. I started in level 1A, the very lowest level, but I wanted to learn French. I thought, I'll go work for the federal government. You know, everyone wants to work for the government. Malaysia, China, UAE, everyone wants to work for the government. I wanted to, and then you need to be bilingual. And I didn't speak French. And so I went there, and then I stayed. And then I was always interested in business. I started my MBA, and I did my MBA in French, and I was the only Anglophone in 1,000 MBA students. And every time I opened my mouth, everyone would turn their head. But I didn't let that stop me. I joined the student government, student union, the MBA society, and I met lots of friends, and I did lots of interesting things, and I became very involved and active at university. I started working, and then I started doing some research at work. I started working as a translator, and then my boss said to me, Connie, you're fired. You have to start a PhD. So she fired me, but she gave me a scholarship to do a PhD in innovation management in French, but in management. By that time, I was very comfortable in French. And then when so I did that in innovation management, knowledge and technology transfer from university, from an engineering research consortium to industry. And that was I loved it. I loved it. But I hated winters. I hated snow, and Quebec City has a lot of snow. And so where did I go? I looked at the map of the world, as you do when Abu Dhabi, no snow. So I went there for a conference. I did go there for a conference, and I really liked it. And so I said, okay, why not? And so I went to Abu Dhabi. I was there for 7.5 years, and I was very involved in research and entrepreneurship, and I taught management and strategy and communications. And I was on the GEM report. I was the lead author for the GEM report in 2012. We wrote a book on Emirati entrepreneurship as well. But then our parents, I'm traditional in that way. And so I came back to Canada, but now for the past 3 years, I've been most full-time, but with a lot of time off. I've been in China at an engineering school, and I'm teaching communications. So I'm working a lot in communications, but I still work in entrepreneurship. I still do research, but now I'm also doing research and teaching, and creative thinking, and question asking, and increasing curiosity. As we know, in China, they have an education system that doesn't always encourage curiosity. But as engineers who want to change the world, you need curiosity. And so we're like curiosity-based teaching. And so I've just received a grant from Guangdong province to do this research. And so I'll be returning to China on Friday. And inshallah. And so I'll be going back to China on Friday, and then we'll have the semester there. So that's basically me in a nutshell.
Wow, Dr. Kuni, you are so experienced. So, with 18 years of experience that you had, what were the difficulties you faced during when you wanted to adapt at work during this pandemic?
So this pandemic, as I mentioned, I like people. I like being involved in community. I join everything. When there's a social committee, I'm there. When there's a volunteer for a conference in something really random, I'm there. I like people. I like meeting people. My office hours are always full. I always have students coming. I have colleagues coming. I always have candy for them. But I like people. That's one part of a university, and being a researcher and involved. And so that personally, that's been hard. Not having and not being around people interacting. It's not the same on Zoom. It's not the same on WeChat. It's not the same by email. And that for me has been the most difficult, I think, as for many of us, especially, in a business school, we're there because we like networking. you know you guys are smiling because I know it's true, right?
Mm,
Yeah.
very true.
So so that, I think, has been hard as it has been for many of us.
So, Dr. Connie, you have studied and worked at multiple institutions across the globe, right? So, what can you tell us about the similarities and differences in these countries, with each country?
So a university is a university. And I have to say, I feel comfortable at a university. And so even when it was in French, and it was in UAE and Arabic and English, and now I'm actually at an Israeli university in China. So I'm a distinct, again, a minority of one Canadian like me. But it's collaboration. There's a spirit of collaboration. There's a spirit of wanting to do new things, to try new things, to learn new things. The people you work with always ask why, or at least my friends, the people I, connect with. Um, and being in a university, there's the young people and students wanting to learn, doing wonderful projects. It's just, that's a very much a similarity. There are actually fewer differences than you would think. Uh, Really, there's fewer differences than you would think. Maybe some HR practices. We have really good dental in Canada. um, Holidays are different, I guess. But really, it's so holidays are different. But that's okay for me too. I don't mind working Christmas, honestly. It's sometimes, but I make it a little fun. We have an ugly Christmas sweater contest, and things like that. I try to keep it lively, but it's also nice to learn about Ramadan and learn about Eid and the long Eid and the two Eids, and learn about traditions and religions, and learn about the Chinese New Year, and learn about the Mid-Autumn Festival. So the differences are opportunities, and I know this sounds cheesy, are opportunities to learn. And that's, for me, that's not a bad thing.
I see. So, Dr. Kuni, we are interested to know about Canada now. So, can you tell us about its culture, like, for an example, the languages, the festivals in Canada, and also about small, medium, large size businesses of Canada?
And so Canada is very much an immigrant country, a country of immigration. And we have 10 provinces and 3 territories. 75% of the population lives within 150 kilometers, 200 kilometers of the US border. So we have French and English, But when you go to Vancouver, which is on the west coast, so I'm from Vancouver Island, but when you go to Vancouver, 60% of the population is Asian. But then when you come here, I'm in Montreal right now. I'm leaving from Montreal. So in Montreal, it's Francophone. Everything is French. You go to the grocery store. We went to the grocery store today. It's French, and they have different immigration. So I grew up with Chinese and Japanese. We used to say East Indian, but you know, Indian, Pakistani, those are the immigrants. Those were immigrants to me, but they were just Canadians, right? But in Quebec, it is mainly Francophone, the Maghreb, you know, from North Africa now. So we're definitely a country of immigrants. My father lives in Alberta, where there's a lot of oil. And so I was there for 3 months, just in October, November, December, I was there. And it's totally different there. It's oil. It's oil and the military. And so everything is based around oil. And in Quebec, it's a lot of smart manufacturing. AI, artificial intelligence, is big in Montreal. And smart, a lot of smart manufacturing, a lot of agribusinesses, a lot of beer, a lot of microbreweries, a lot of co-ops, very small scale though. So, and then I live in the East Coast. My house is in the East Coast, and in the East Coast, it's a lot of fishing, a lot of timber, lumber, and 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 again some agriculture. And here in Quebec, there's so it's different across Canada, but we are still a country of what we were founded on. We cut wood down. We take minerals out of. We take asbestos. You know, asbestos. Asbestos was it was an insulator. It is a great insulator, but it also causes cancer. Just this past fall, the town of Asbestos here in Quebec changed its name because they had the asbestos mine. That's where asbestos came from Canada. We mine uranium. We have diamonds in the north. My brother bought his wife a diamond mined in Canada. Oil is big still. We export. Our main export is still oil, timber, fish products, and gold, silver, uranium, metals. We are still that, but at the same time, 80% of our companies are smaller. We have a lot of small, and our definition of small is not the same as Malaysia's. Our small companies are very small, and there's services still. You know, services like everywhere in the world are the base of the economy. But for us, for our exports, it's still mainly canola. When you drive and see, I've lived many parts of Canada as well. And in the prairies, you just drive and it's just fields and fields of canola. And fields and fields and mustard seed. Canada grows like 80% of the mustard seed in the world. Just we grow things and we cut things and we dig things and we extract, and still that's really what Canada's economy is still based on. It. Of course, we have BlackBerry was our famous company, and we know everyone knows what happened with that. We do have in Quebec, here in Montreal, and in Vancouver, we do, and in Toronto, of course. I tend to forget about Toronto. It is our biggest city, though. We have a lot of IT. We do have a lot of IT. We make games. Ubisoft has its headquarters, North American headquarters, of course, in Montreal, due to language. It's from Electronic Arts is based in Vancouver. And then when we get to the small and medium-sized businesses, they're small. Like I looked up some statistics just to have a few. Oh, and it doesn't want to. So there's most of our people, so we work for the government and we do have big employees, but 70% of our people are employed in small and medium-sized businesses. And of those, 98% are small businesses. And small businesses, we have a different definition of small business in Canada. It's not the same as the States. It's 1 to 100, 1 to 99 is a small business, and 98% of our businesses are in there. Yeah. 98%. So they're small. They're businesses like you would find anywhere else in the world, but they are services rather than the manufacturing. Manufacturing is done more from medium-sized businesses. Medium-sized is between 100 and 500. I used to know all these stats from my head, but I've been out of Canada for a while. We only have 41. We only have very few large businesses in Canada in proportion. Very, very, very few. So there you go. That's Canada.
Canada is really rich with natural resources.
We are.
Very rich.
We are very rich. We have blue gold as well. I had a because I had a professor, and he was dean of the forestry, the dean of forestry, and he talked about Canada's blue gold, our water. We have the majority of fresh water in the world. One day that's going to be, but we are still very much a country of resources and taking these primary resources, as much as we don't want to be. It's not sexy. But that's how we make our money. It is still. You're very right.
Canada seems like a really amazing place to visit one day.
It is, and it's huge. It's huge. I drove from the east coast to Montreal. It's 10 hours, 980 kilometers.
Wow.
And I like to drive. It's okay. But no, Canada is huge, and we have many different parts of, but there is a Canadianness. Canadians are nice. When you meet a Canadian, it doesn't matter if they're an immigrant Canadian or from forever Canadian. We are nice. and I think Canadians are, for North America, we're a bit simpler, and we have more of a collectivist society than the United States. The United States is much more well known in North America, but a lot of the stereotypes about Canada are kind of true.
Canada seems to be a jack of all trades, from the gaming industry to all sorts of things, all sorts of exports, imports.
No, and we do have that, and we have some great universities, and Montreal is known as one of the maybe the best city in the world for students, for university students. There's 5 universities in Montreal. My brother-in-law, I'm sitting in his office, everything's online, but he works at the Polytechnique. So education is also one of our resources in Canada. We have a lot of people, a lot of foreigners come, and it is also a way to become an immigrant. It is probably the best way to become an immigrant. Many of my fellow PhD students and even MBA students went on to become Canadian citizens, which is wonderful, which is what we need in Canada. We need more people, and we need bright people and hardworking people and people doing different things. But definitely in Montreal, we have a lot of AI, definitely. And in Vancouver too. On the in the middle, no, there's less, but there's a lot of farming still.
The common saying is jack of all trades, master of none, but in this case, I think it's jack of all trades, master of all. Seem to be doing well in almost every aspect.
Quietly,
Mhm.
I think we are. Quietly, I don't think we toot our own horn, but Canada has developed expertise in many different areas. Uh, Niche. We have a lot of niche
Mhm.
enterprises, small and
Right.
medium-sized enterprises. My brother-in-law is an industrial engineer, so he works with a lot of small and medium-sized companies and they build things that no one else in the world builds, and they export them, and the market is external. When we look at Quebec, of course, Quebec is what I know the best. I did my MBA and PhD here, and it's where my ties still are. We have Bombardier. We make planes, we make trains, we make the subway cars, we make ski-doos, but you guys would have more sea-doos, the things that you go in the water.
Oh, yeah,
Those
right, yeah,
motorcycles in water,
yeah, yeah, that,
sea-doos,
yeah.
those were invented here, in Quebec. They invented ski-doos, and we have a lot of snow. So we are dynamic. We don't boast perhaps as much as some other countries, especially those to the south of us. Um, but I think that's also who we are, as a culture, a culture. We just want to quietly do our thing and have nice standard of living, nice lifestyle. We and yet at the same time we don't want our neighbor to suffer. So so we have healthcare in Canada with um, we have higher taxes, and so the Canadian dream is very much different than, I'd say, the American dream is. The Canadian dream is that you have a house, maybe you have a cottage, or you share a cottage with your sisters and brothers. You buy a cottage as a family for the summers. You maybe go down south in the winter. Of course, not this year. And so the Canadian dream is much quieter than the American dream. And I think that's why we're a very popular country for immigration.
Yep. So, Dr. Kani, based on the recent developments in the business world with COVID and basically everything shutting down, what kind of class projects and examples would you use or recommend to be implemented in the business curriculum as a whole?
So, so that it is harder. It is harder. So in China, I'll be doing an innovation management class, but in China, we're going to do something with a company. And so that's much harder now. I think you both are in international business, correct?
Correct.
And so with international business, I would look online with other students, with other universities, with other classes in other parts of the world, and business model development, or new product development, or something, innovation or creativity project. And that is definitely what I would do. I would look online and look to collaborate with others your own age, or not necessarily your own age. I mean, undergrad can be older. It's usually early 20s, late teens. um, And then if you're in your MBA, it's all ages. And so I would look online and I would look international, or even national, other universities, and trying to collaborate. Businesses, it is much harder to collaborate right now. They don't have the bandwidth. They simply don't have the time. Many around the world are just struggling to survive. Here right now in Quebec, the province of Quebec, it's in lockdown. The only stores that are open are grocery stores and or liquor stores as well, of course. But grocery stores, it's weird. It's Quebec, joie de vivre, you know. But it's just grocery stores. And even when you go into a grocery store, non-essential items are blocked off. You can't buy, Valentine's Day is coming up. You can't buy Valentine's Day candy right now because it's non-essential, or Valentine's Day decorations, because it's non-essential. And so companies don't have the bandwidth to work at the moment. I would be doing a lot of project. So we did a project on Nobel Prize, and so that's what I got the teaching grant was. And so we looked at the Nobel Prize from the first initial research question, and then we traced it, and then I got the students to trace each pivot. A Nobel Prize, it's not a linear thing. And it's not a 5-year research project, or even a 10-year or a 15-year. These Nobel Prizes are like 20, 30, 40-year projects. And so we mapped them. They mapped that, and the different questions, the research questions that led the development of the project. And so those types of things might be possible, like looking at the history of, because we do have access to that with internet. Um, Projects like that, because unfortunately I am a big proponent of working with smaller, medium-sized companies, but I don't think they can do it now. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair for me as a professor to ask. But maybe some countries are in better shape than others. But in Canada, I just wouldn't be able to. In China, yes, because they're okay. They're okay. I don't know about Malaysia. I think it's okay, but there's still strict rules in place.
Especially right now, recently, there are more rules in place, got a recent spike in cases. But it's interesting that you say China isn't doing too badly considering they were the main area where the COVID spike came from, I'd say. So
They are.
how they like recover from that so quickly?
Well, they went into strict lockdown, and so in the spring, I had online courses. My students weren't allowed outside. One member of the family, one time a day, could go and get groceries. And that's it. All companies were shut. All schools were shut. And like people weren't, some of my students didn't go outside for 2 months. So that's how they got it down to 0 cases. And so now when I go to China, I have to have a test, of course, before going, and then I'll go into a very strict 2-week quarantine in a hotel, and I'll be tested about 8 times for COVID. And then I'll go to my apartment on campus, and I'll be in my apartment for 1 week by myself in quarantine. And then I'll be 1 week on campus. So I'll do 4 weeks of quarantine. And so that's how they're able to to keep it in as much control as possible. And it's, you know, they're very, very collectivist society. Everyone wants to do their part. And so when they say go get tested, everyone in a city needs to be tested. They go, they line up, and they get tested. In Canada, that's just, it would, people still don't want to wear masks. They do, but they still, yeah.
I think a large majority of the world disagrees with the mask for their own reasons, I guess.
Yeah, no, there's still a portion, like I'm a full mask wearer. I've had I've had Japanese friends for 20 years and Chinese friends for 20 years. So you know, and for them they wear masks. I don't know about Malaysia, but whenever someone is sick in China, they wear a mask.
Yeah.
Like even before, you know.
Mm.
So wearing a mask is just something you did. It's for you, but it's for others. And so that hasn't always translated into a less collectivist society.
All right. So, Dr. Coney, after authorizing and co-authorizing multiple papers like you did, yeah. So, what are your like main tips for students that are trying to get a hand into writing, or for undergraduate students, those are who trying to accomplish the same?
So I really always, if there, I have encouraged my students from forever, if there's a conference, apply. Apply. You're going to have something, you know, especially in fourth year, you'll have a project, apply. Right? If there's a research competition, apply and write something. I'm here to help you. And so, or there's other professors there to help you. And so you can take class projects and you can go to local conferences. And oftentimes for students, it's free to almost free. And remember I said that you know why I know this? Because I did it. As a master's student, I went to the World Forestry, the FAO, the World Forestry Conference. I asked, and because you know, it's a 200, it's very inexpensive, and I went there and I presented my thing, and I turned it into a paper, and it got published. And so you have to go and you have to put yourself out there. You have to see if you have a project that you're really proud of. Even if it's just a lit review, even if it's just a small project you did in marketing with a local company, there are probably, now it's less, but there's a lot of online conferences now, which are almost free or free, especially when you're coming from not the West. There's a lot of scholarships and bursaries you could apply for, and you can present your stuff, write your abstract, work with a professor, go to a professor, say, hey, I've got this project with a small company, I did this marketing project, I'd really like to present this at this, and they will help you. Read papers, read. Not just read to learn, but read, look at the structure. Look how they develop their literature review. Look at how they develop their methodology. I just on my CV you can see I just have so many conference articles written with students. They don't all turn them into a paper, but for me that's not a waste of time. Also, if there's a poster presentation you can do it. Do it. Apply. Just do it. I had one undergraduate student, a young man, and he was doing a directed reading course with me on entrepreneurship. And he was reading the books that we had written and the gem report. He said, when I read it, it's like I hear your voice in my head. I can't get away from you. And he presented his project at an MIT forum in Abu Dhabi. And this is a little boy, not little, he was in the military. He's not, anyways, I'm a bit of a maternal professor, sorry. But he's from the mountains, the first one in his family to graduate from high school. And he presented his poster research presentation on Emirati entrepreneurship at an MIT conference. Because why not? And so that's and we went to my because I did this, and we would say in French, pourquoi pas? And so my friend and I, in our PhD, she had a case study on knowledge management, and I had a case study on knowledge management, and we put them together. And we sent it to a conference in Harvard. We were the only PhD students who presented. It was a really tiny conference. It was absolutely free. And yet it was all, it was very informal, it was very small, but they accepted it. So we went, we drove down, it was 6 hours, we rented a car, we got money from this, you know, and so that, say pourquoi pas, why not? And because the only way we can write is by writing.
As someone who's not actually the most confident person in the room, that actually speaks a lot to me. So thank you for that, doctor.
Oh, I am not confident at all. I wasn't. And actually, so this is Ibitisam Shujur or whatever. Smile and courage is my motto. Because I wanted to write. And I wanted to present. I wanted to share my ideas. And then finally I said, why aren't I? So smile and courage, just do it. Smile, put a smile on your face, good energy, and just do it. And we realize that everyone is a little scared, and that people really do just want to help you, especially when you're an undergraduate, or if you're not part of the big boys. You know, we're University Laval, we're a very good university, but we weren't well known. It was a very francophone university, especially at the time. But all the professors just wanted to help us, just wanted to guide us, just wanted to give us suggestions. They didn't want to tear us apart. Do you think we were scared? And my friend was from Brazil, and she had never been to a conference before. So she dressed like she was going to, she dressed up as a Brazilian would. She had like 5-inch high heels on and a dress that was cut because she was dressing up. And we, you know, everyone else is just in, you know, what we're wearing now, you know, and especially professors, you know, we don't dress fancy. But we had the best time.
The unplanned moments.
Yes! And just the pourquoi pas. Why not? Let's just try. The worst thing, they say no, but just apply for these conferences. Look for the call for papers. If you want to publish, and you really do need to publish, and your professors want to publish, look for call for papers. Look for local conferences. There's usually, in conferences, there's always a place for students. That's different than if I were writing a paper. And call for papers is sometimes there's more opportunity than you would think.
That was very inspiring and
Insightful.
insightful.
Yeah.
Well, it's what I did, and I realized it worked. And it's not just in Canada. It's not just in the UAE. It's also in China. I got my students to they're engineering, and they're engineering students, but I'm the supervisor for the English club. No kidding. And they had developed this whole English corner. I said, write a paper about it and submit it to the conference. And they did, and it was accepted. No, it's not an engineering paper, but it was a paper. And of course, it was free for students. I mean, it's free.
So, Dr. Connie, you've taught at multiple universities over the of different cultures and different backgrounds. So, how do you manage to adapt to all their respective cultures and their behaviors?
I observe. My number one thing, I do not want to offend anyone. I don't want to offend anyone. And so actually going to the UAE was tough at first because, it's gender segregated. And I arrive and I stand, and I'm very dynamic when I teach, and I'm very enthusiastic. And I'm standing in front, and I have all my lovely young women in their abayas, and all of them have a poker face on. And I was scared. I was like, because we react, we react to students. Like, do they understand? Are they nodding? I want to smile. I'm a funny teacher. And there was no reaction. But you just learn. You just learn, and you open yourself up to learn. And I have that reputation, or that's just my personality. I want to learn. And so I can tell you about all the tribes of Abu Dhabi. I can tell you about the history. I can tell you about the culture. I've been to the mountains to collect honey. I've been to a camel racing farm. I've been to an Arabian horse farm. I've been to Azbaz. I've been to everywhere because my students know I want to learn. And so they teach me. In China, my students know I want to learn, that I'm curious. And so they teach me. Other professors know that I want to learn. They say, Connie, do you want to come? And what do I say? I say yes. And I want to help. I want to support my colleagues. I want to support my students. And so that, I think, has helped me more than anything. I want to learn, and I'm very respectful. And I don't judge. Every culture, every religion has its ways of doing things that are very different than Canada. But I don't pretend that Canada has the right way of doing it. No, I don't want to be a second wife. I was asked to be a second wife. No, I don't want to be. But I don't. But my best friend's sister let her husband have a second wife. And the kids, when I go there, and I go there for Eid, and it's just, I don't judge. I don't, and I want to learn. I want to understand. And I think many of us in academia, and so that helps me. But I watch. I don't want to offend anyone, so I watch. I look to what the oldest person is doing, because they're probably doing it the right way. And I try to do what they do. I've eaten with my hands. Uh, I'm not good at it. But to show respect, you need to try. And so that is a way, is you have to go into a situation, say, I know nothing and I need to learn. Kids will help you too.
I see sometimes you really need to conform to their culture in order to show respect.
Yes, and I really don't have a problem with that. I don't think it's hypocritical. I think it's just respectful. And I do. I do. You know, my my best friend, one of my best friends, she's Emirati. And when I go back there for a vacation, I stay with her. And I can't go out at night by myself. And I live alone, and I've lived alone for 20 years. But I don't go out at night by myself because, you know, and it's sometimes hard. But her mom is and dad would be too worried about me. So I don't. We stay in and we do whatever we do. So,
Right.
but so that's what I do. Respect has to be the number one item in not just your mind but your heart.
Like personally for me, I love learning about other cultures and the way they do things. And from the way you're talking about different cultures, I assume that you really enjoy it as well.
Oh, I do. I do. I do. I I do. I do. And you know, so tonight I may and I like to learn to cook, and I like to learn, and so I guess I'm a business professor, but sometimes to learn, to have access to knowledge, they need to trust us. We can't do research with people who don't trust you. And so sometimes to build that trust, we need to go into the social sphere in certain cultures. In Canada, you don't have to do that. In the US, certainly not. But in Asia, I've found they the trust needs to be built up, and sometimes that is done in a social sphere rather than a business sphere. And I'm not, and I don't do it I don't do it to get information or to get knowledge, but that's just the process that needs to be taken.
The relationship that needs to be built, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And sometimes in North America, that relationship can be built just simply at work. But in especially in the UAE, it needs to be built. You know, it's built slowly, but it's also built in more of a home environment at times.
I see. Dr. Koni, as you mentioned earlier, that you have conducted a research on entrepreneurship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so we just want to know how this pandemic has affected the Canadian business and how are they currently surviving right now in the current situation?
Okay, well, have you heard of Shopify?
Shopify dropshipping?
Shopify. So Shopify is like it's a Canadian company. So
Mhm.
Shopify wants to become the Amazon for independent companies. So a lot of companies have moved online and are now selling online, either selling through Facebook, but many are doing it through the Shopify app or the Shopify platform, which so Shopify. So I like to support small businesses, and so there's many different grocery stores and like ethnic grocery stores because I like food from wherever, and also soaps and perfumes and natural made stuff. And so a lot of companies have moved online, but they're using the Shopify application or Shopify platform, which is like when you go to Amazon, everything's, you just have to click and they send it to you. Shopify is also very similar. So I can go to a very small company, that's very small, there's a clothing store in St. John where I live, and she uses the Shopify platform. And really, it's just her and maybe 2 part-time employees. But she developed a website and she uses Shopify so that when I click, all the, the selling, my shipping, all that information is captured by this platform, Shopify. And so many retail companies have done that. Service companies are struggling. Personal service companies are struggling. Sorry, there's a... Sorry. Personal services are struggling. But many retail shops have gone online. Universities are online, almost entirely online. Very small universities are face-to-face. So a lot of companies, if they can, have moved onto Zoom, onto Microsoft Teams, and really many developed websites to sell their products. And for some, it's been okay because there's a feeling we want to support local and shop local. So they've pivoted. They've moved as much as they can online, like many places have.
So a lot of countries have gone the support local, shop local route of keeping their economy alive. Do you think that this would affect any of the more international companies very severely?
I honestly, that's a very good question. I don't know. Maybe. Like so I'm thinking actually of pop. Pop we call soda, like Coke. I think Coke and Pepsi have suffered. I think there are smaller companies popping up selling fancy Coke. I don't know. you know. Um, will it stay like that? I don't know, but I think some international companies will, but they'll pivot. I think they'll pivot. They'll do that. I think more it's the national or the national for us, it's the national companies that are suffering. We have one Hudson's Bay company just laid off 2,000 employees. Um, and laid off another 2,000 permanent and another 4,000 layoff. It might be temporary. They've closed many stores, many big box stores, as we call them, have closed because, well, one, we don't need clothes, but we're trying to support our local, so where you would go for clothing at a Hudson Bay company, so one of the oldest companies in Canada are suffering. So I think it's the nationwide companies, especially for clothing and retail, they are suffering. We've had several go out of business, actually, but they're not SMEs at all. They're large scale Canada-wide companies, but they've gone out of business. So you're right. It
It's more
is
on a national scale rather than an international scale.
internet, yeah, rather than international, yeah.
All right. So, Dr. Connie, that's all from us. And thank you so much, Dr. Connie, for your time We really appreciate all your feedback and your input that you have given us today, and it will definitely benefit all, like many students here at Sunway. And once again, we would like to thank you.
Well, it was a pleasure. I've met several of your professors and the people in leadership, and I think Sunway is such a dynamic university. Actually, I was talking about my best friend, right, in UAE. She wants to do a PhD, and I told her to do it in Sunway because you guys have dynamic professors who want the best for you, who want you guys and your direction, the management want you guys to shine and to make Malaysia a dynamic, innovative, cool country. And I think that is just awesome.
Well, Dr. Connie, if you ever find yourself on our side of the globe, feel free to email any one of us. We'll be happy to meet you in real
Oh,
life and
I
have a
would love
chat.
to. No, it is my intention to come to Malaysia. You know, after COVID, after
Yep,
COVID,
definitely after COVID.
it's definitely on my to do, to visit, to explore and to learn. Thank you so much for
Thank you
inviting
so
me.
much, Doctor. Now, just
We're
stop the
really happy to
recording.
host you in Malaysia.
Yep.
Our
Oh,
pleasure.
I would love it. You have to teach me how to cook something though.